I am what you might call a nerd. Although, when I grew up, I wasn't really considered a nerd because the definition of nerd has changed a bit over the years. When I was growing up, a lot of people had game consoles at home. And it was just really another toy. It wasn't really like, oh, you're a nerd because you have a Nintendo or whatever, because it was really common. And even those who didn't have Nintendos, who had Mega Drives or Super Nintendos later on, it wasn't really like nerdy. The nerdy thing back then was computers, because to have a computer, I mean, it doesn't take much intelligence to just flick the power switch, put in a cartridge and press A and B, but to do stuff with computers, even play games, was a bit of an undertaking. So those people, the computer nerds or computer geeks, they were nerds, but us console playing people weren't really. But then as things progressed, computers became more commonplace, and the computer nerd, while it's still a thing, has gone off to its own section. And now we have the nerd who's into games in general, consoles and handhelds and other places, which is what I am basically. But then something happened, and I think it was the Pokemon boom around 98, 99, 2000, that era. And connected to that was the anime, and a lot of people I knew saw it. And then the cards and the comic books, blah blah blah, everything. So then the definitions sort of changed over the years to the nerd likes video games, manga, and anime. That's how I see it anyway. And cosplay as a kind of a fourth thing. But basically, I always had my feet planted firmly in games. I'm never really been into anime and manga very much. I'm still basically only into games, but I am open to anime, and I've been more open to anime. Although I've never really been interested in manga, and I'm still not really almost at all interested in manga. Just a little bit, just because games that have mangas based on them, or if a game was based on a manga, then I might get a little interested just because I want to get some more information or something. But it's always that always comes back to games. But as I said, anime has been at a little corner at least. Now, the first example of anime that I ever came across was when I was a kid, and back then when I didn't know what anime was, I just thought a cartoon is a cartoon. Now I split it into cartoon West, anime East, even though it's both are cartoons really, and they're animated. Anyway, it was Sailor Moon. That was on television when I was a kid, and it was along with all the other Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Disney-related stuff. And while I don't remember really watching it, following it, because it was a girls' show, I still somehow remember the theme song. So maybe there's something that my memory doesn't want to tell me. Christmas Eve 2000, I saw Pokemon the first movie, because I was bored, and Christmas Eve, when you're in the age to enjoy it, which I apparently was at 15, Christmas Eve is the longest day of the year, and to pass the time, I'll watch anything that's on TV, even if it doesn't seem interesting. And Pokemon the first movie was on, and I watched it. And I don't remember liking it really, but I do remember thinking that Mewtwo was cool. So there you go. At some point, I heard of Yu-Gi-Oh, and I dismissed it offhand, just because I basically said to me like, well, you, blah, 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 you killed my family, blah, blah, blah. Let's now settle our big feud with a fucking card game. And I'm like, yeah, whatever, who gives a shit? Maybe there's more to that show, but probably there is, but I don't know. Now, my first real entry into anime was I watched the whole series of Rockman EXE, or EXE, as I call it, which is Mega Man Battle Network, because I'm hugely into Mega Man, and around that time I played the Mega Man Battle Network series, and I found out there was an anime based on it, and I wanted to see. And there was this translating group called Wolfpack Productions who just translated the whole of, I think it was 56 episodes of the first series. And I remember I downloaded them, and then I played them out to VHS, so I had like a shelf full of those episodes, and then I watched those episodes on like Sundays or something. And yeah, I thought it was pretty good, pretty fun. But then I found out that there are like 2 or 3 other Rockman X series. Like there's Access, there's Stream, there's Beast, and there's probably stuff after that, and one's based on Star Force. I wanted to continue with Access, the next series, but that one hadn't been fully translated. So I think I downloaded 26 out of 50 something episodes. And I didn't want to start watching it until I knew that the other ones were available or something. So I just never really watched them. And then finally, like a couple of years ago or whatever, when the whole series actually was translated, I didn't feel like it anymore. In the meantime, though, basically I also wanted to continue because I wanted to get to Stream, where the coolest character in the games, and the anime too, I guess, is Forte or Bass. People from Space, Duo, the villain of Battle Network 4, comes with his henchwoman Slur, who's not in the game, kills Forte just out of the blue, which was like a shocking thing. And then at the very end of the series, Forte comes back and kills Slur, which was pretty brutal. And I thought it was pretty cool, but I wanted to get to that part, but I couldn't because Access was never finished. And then if Access was taking so long, when was Stream ever going to get translated? So I just passed on the whole thing. Another VHS-related adventure was Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals, which I watched basically because I've played Final Fantasy V, and Final Fantasy Legend of the Crystals was supposed to take place like 200 years after Final Fantasy V or something. And it did, but it was very 99% unrelated to Final Fantasy V. So it was really nothing too special. Yeah, but I watched it. Also, I watched the live action movie. I wouldn't really call that in the anime category because it's I don't really count CG animation. Kind of like Final Fantasy Advent Children, which I like. I have it on DVD, but sticking to anime. But on Final Fantasy, I did watch Final Fantasy VII: The Last Order, which is a thing. It basically shows what Zack and Cloud went through going to Nibelheim or something in Final Fantasy VII. I saw the Mega Man TV series, which of course wasn't an anime, it was made in America, but I bought the 2 seasons of the American series. I also saw that it was an OVA DVD thing, which had like 3 episodes from Japan, dubbed into English, but I think they were sort of like pilot episodes for a Japanese television series that never was. And that one was actually quite a bit better than the American version because it was way more faithful, even though Mega Man was like a young boy in that. I saw the Animatrix, which was largely made by Japanese studios, I hear. I remember, like, there was that one short where the guy runs really fast and he like outruns the Matrix or something. That has the drawing style that I'm not very fond of because it feels like watching Sauce or something. My favorite parts of the Animatrix was the History of the World. I don't remember something. The 2 episodes that were like prequels to the movies that showed that when humanity invented robots and they started to mistreating them, of course, and then the robots killed someone and it became a war, and then the humans like idiots scorched the sky, and then we were led into the Matrix basically. That was interesting and pretty violent, as I recall. And besides watching most of the video game related movies, I watched the animated Tekken movie, and I don't remember anything about it. When it comes to Tekken and animation, the only thing I really remember is Xiao Yu's ending in Tekken 5, I think, where she like builds a time machine and goes back to where Heihachi threw Kazuya off the rock, and then Kazuya kicks Heihachi in the nose, and then Xiao Yu's presence makes Kazuya fall in the chasm, although he was going to fall there anyway, but she learns that she can't change the past or something. When the Wii was in swing, they put out the whole Kirby anime, or the American version called Kirby Right At You or something. And I tried watching 1 episode, and I basically got bored, and I never tried again, even though I like Kirby. So maybe I'll try again with that in the future. And once I ordered a bunch of movies from some kind of movie site, and I got, as like a bonus thing, I got a disc with one episode of an anime called School Rumble, which was a school anime. There's a lot of those. I thought that one was pretty funny, as I remember. I don't remember much about it. And then I met my lovely friends. They got me to watch Code Geass. Like, I don't know, 12 episodes, 15 episodes, something. And I thought that was pretty good, what I watched. But then I slowly lost interest, and I don't quite remember why. I mean, anime, that series kind of started really interesting, and then it kind of started to drop the excitement a bit for just kind of stretching it. And, I mean, what's a show to do, really? I mean, you don't want to make a series with 10 really intense episodes. You want to make a series with 30 episodes and then stretch it, because you want more episodes means more viewers, means more money. So I don't hold it against it, really, but I basically just lost interest a bit. Now this is sort of cheating, but I've seen on YouTube the JoJo Abridged, which is a bunch of episodes condensed a lot, and with English dubbing that just takes the piss out of everything. It's a parody, and it was quite funny, and it kind of makes me want to see JoJo a bit. It was quite bizarre, as it were. Back when, I thought that Gundam was ripping off Transformers, because I knew of Transformers when I was a kid. I never really watched it, but I knew that it existed. And Gundam, put Optimus Prime and the regular Gundam beside each other. They look kind of similar. So I thought that since Transformers came first, that I thought it was a rip-off. But no, Gundam came out in like 1979 on the heels of Star Wars. So we watched the two first Gundam movies. Unfortunately, they're not really movies, so to speak. They're condensement of the series that came before it, and that can make the actual movie become very unfocused, and like they have to cram so much into it. The Gundam movies that I saw didn't really fall into that too much. It followed a bit of a story, even though, it was the same thing when I saw Star Wars Droids. It was the whole series, or selected parts of the series. I think it was three-parters or something, squeezed into one movie, so to speak, on one disc. And it was annoying, because I was hoping there's going to be one story from beginning to end, but instead it was one story that began and ended in a half an hour, and then another started, and then that ended, and then another started, and that ended. And it was like, what? And then I realized, oh yeah, it's a television series that's just been packed into one disc. But the Gundam movies were fine anyway. I might be open to watch something else. It's just that there's so many of them. There's so many series, like, I don't know, like 10 series or something, and more movies, those condensed movies. All that I know is that Gundam Seed sucks ass. Since I'll watch most anything, not really anything, but I'll watch a lot of things if it's based on a game. And I watched the Bayonetta movie, and that was based on the game. I never played the game, but I know Bayonetta, the character, is pretty cool, and I thought that movie might be cool, and it was okay. It was, again, kind of confusing. That little girl, is she supposed to be Bayonetta as a kid, or her daughter, or just like a magic child, or what? But there was a bunch of fighting and sexy times, so it was fine. I saw a few episodes of World War Blue, which wasn't a really odd thing, but it was apparently going to be. It was kind of like a pilot or whatever. They made a few episodes, but they didn't continue or something. It was basically an anime version of the console wars between Sega and Nintendo. So you have like a game character like Kirby, but transformed into a warrior with a spear or whatever, and it was a really interesting concept, and it was pretty heavy on the lewdness. As I recall, there was like tits and ass and stuff. I'm not complaining, but it wasn't really a serious anime. But it was a good idea. I would like to see more. And then somewhat recently, because I know it's a sort of a legendary movie thing that I've heard about, I sat down and watched Akira. And I didn't know a lot about Akira. I just know he rides a motorcycle. It's in Neo Tokyo, and one character is like Resident Evil mutating. He's like kind of like William Birkin and the G virus and stuff. And that movie wasn't that great. Again, I think it fell victim to the thing that we had to condense a whole long ass show into 2 hours. But what ended up was just confusing, confusing. A couple of cool action scenes and then more confusing. It looked decent, but not my thing. I haven't really watched any Hayao Miyazaki movies except for Princess Mononoke. And when it comes to Miyazaki, everyone, even people I know, random people who are not into Japanese stuff, they've watched a couple and they think they are brilliant, amazing, etc. And I thought Princess Mononoke was okay, and it looked really nice. But the story was sort of, it wasn't entirely, but it was sort of like Dances with Wolves. The same, it's kind of similar, or like The Jungle Book or something, where a person gets somehow thrown into the woods and has to live with the animals and becomes like this champion of nature, while the big bad humans come in to subjugate everyone, and they have to show them the value of nature, etc., which is a message that I've been tired of forever, really. But still, the movie was good. It was just not that great. But I'm definitely open to seeing more Miyazaki. But basically because of its reputation more than its the way like the movie looks. Like just looking at Spirited Away, that doesn't look interesting. It just looks weird. Grave of the Fireflies, I would say, looks like it could be a good movie because it's like about World War II, but not from the perspective of two kids or something. Other, I don't know. I don't feel in a big rush to get to Miyazaki movies, but feel free to recommend one. And then a couple of weeks ago, I went to the movie theater actually and watched Your Name, the movie that whenever I say the name, I can't help but think of one particular scene in a Beavis and Butthead episode.
God evening. My name is Your Name.
No, stupid. Say your name.
Your Name?
Now, Your Name, or Kimi no Na wa, it was a good movie. I expected from the trailer and whatever I read about it, I expected it to be like a comedy of switching bodies, like a body swapping comedy. And then I heard people saying, "Oh, this movie is so original. It's so original." And I was like, "What?" I mean, body swapping comedies have been around. There's The Hot Chick, there's Freaky Friday, and others. So, But as I watched the movie, it defied my expectations and kept me guessing for at least the first 2 acts. The third act got a little bit confusing. But it actually managed to not fall apart on itself, and since it wasn't based on a really long show, it managed to stay a lot more focused. But without really spoiling, the whole body swapping thing is basically the first act. It's kind of like the setup, and it has some fun with it, but then it takes a turn and becomes like a mystery, sort of like a murder mystery, except no one was murdered. And then, mystery deepens, blah blah blah. Then it becomes a little artsy and stuff, but it managed to tie up the sack, or whatever that expression goes. There's a fly here. Go away, Jeff Goldblum. Now, as a student of the language, I watched the movie and tried to listen and understand that kind of thing. It went so-so. But it was interesting that the guy was from Tokyo and the girl was from Itomori, which is some place that doesn't exist in real life. But it was supposed to be somewhere in the Kansai area anyway, but above Osaka, to the north of that. Because I noticed that they spake. Is that a word? I noticed that they spoke Osaka dialect, and it was a little bit like it was portrayed that they're living like way out in the sticks in this village somewhere, and it seems like kind of a thing in Japan where if you have like a hillbilly, they'll be speaking Kansai dialect, I also noticed that the movie had an opening theme song, which was a little weird because opening theme songs aren't they reserved for shows? That's what I thought anyway. And this isn't based on a show, so why did it have an opening? I guess that's just par for the course in Japan. Then it has songs later on too, but that, I mean, song montages with songs is common in any movie, so that's fine. But yeah, not much of a review maybe, but I thought the movie was very good. It wasn't great, but it was good, and it kept me guessing for a while, and then had a nice ending at the end after becoming a bit confusing. I will watch it again, actually, and the animation and graphics, if that makes sense, are amazing. So good. I mean, it's still an anime, so you still have the kind of animation where they're just kind of like... But when they're actually like, you know, like moving and the camera pans and zooms and the clouds look amazing and the woods, I mean, like this, you could take a still frame of any landscape from that movie and just frame it. It was really, really good looking. And I noticed that even though the movie is called Kimi no Na wa, in the movie, every time they say Kimi no namae wa, which is the more correct way of saying it. So why is the title Kimi no Na wa? I just don't get that. So that has been my history with anime. I've seen quite a bit, really, but it still feels like I haven't scratched the surface. But I am at least open to watching anime, although I'm, to be honest, more interested in watching live action movies. Not to say live action movies based on animes, but just live action movies in general. I'm a little bit more interested in those than in animes, but I'm still a little open to it. I'm open to it anyway, especially if it's based on a game. That's even better.